Thanks for checking out this video. This is the 1979 installment of the 1970s horror movie superlative series that I am doing with your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. Once again, how it works, finish out this video all the way through to hear my picks for 1979, then go over to your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete's channel, which is linked in my description. While you're there, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll also do it for mine. But watch his video with the same name, get his picks, then come back to my channel, go to the community tab, and vote for whose picks you like the most or who justified it best or whatever. Now, a little bit of housekeeping really quick. We will be taking a 1 week break before doing kind of like our ultimate wrap up where we take all of our picks for each category for the decade and we come up with our ultimate list and we do like a winner and a runner up. So we have to delay it 1 week just so you know because, life gets in the way and we got too busy. So we are going to have it on the 5th, on October 5th. So there will not be one right after the week of this one. Just skip 1 week, but it's coming. Just know that. So I think in that Wednesday that it would have been, I think I might be releasing a sponsored video of a very interesting product. I think. But if it's not, it'll be something else. I'll put something out. It'll be fun regardless. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the horror movie superlatives for 1979. And I'm sure a lot of people will see this one coming, especially. Actually, if people know me, you'll see probably a decent amount of these picks coming. But this one's so easy. This is one of the easiest ones for most amazing the entire decade, and that is Alien. Probably my favorite, other than The Thing, my favorite horror sci-fi film. The original Alien is an unbelievable masterpiece, and yes, this is the entire collection. This isn't just the original. Pretty nice, actually. Yeah, Alien. I mean, what can you say about it? It's gorgeous. I actually had the amazing opportunity to see a re-release of it in the theater a few years ago, and the amount of detail you can see in the set design with it in that size on the big screen and with a better resolution is amazing. Like, there's so much detail and care that went into this film. The directing is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal. The script is phenomenal. Dan O'Bannon wrote it, did such a good job writing it. Ridley Scott did such a good job directing it. All the acting was so good. Sigourney Weaver in a very pivotal, very important female role in the pantheon of horror films. She, becomes the big hero in the end. And let's not forget that the cat actually survives. When in most horror films, the animals don't make it. The cat survives all the way through, which is, I mean, I'm a cat person, so I love that. But the film is ridiculously good. The design of the aliens by H.R. Giger, amazing. Which there's a documentary called Dark Star about Giger, which I highly recommend. Very, very interesting. But it's an iconic film. And it's an iconic film for a reason. Because everything technically was basically perfection. The story is unbelievably interesting. The whole space concept and this life cycle of this creature that preys on other life forms in order to keep going is just unbelievably interesting. And it's not just an interesting concept, it's all about how it was executed. And the final fight is so satisfying and so interesting. I mean, obviously there was a long franchise that was spawned from it, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing more Alien films. Hopefully they're better than some of the ones we got. But yeah, it's phenomenal. I don't need to say too much more. Alien, my pick for most amazing for 79. Now the best so bad it's good film, which is one I just watched for the first time. I'd heard of it, sounded ridiculous, sounded like a so bad it's good film, and man, is this an amazing so bad it's good film. Microwave Massacre. Yes, there's a microwave involved. No, the microwave doesn't kill people. The microwave's just used to cook people after the fact. It's basically about this guy who is sick and tired of eating interesting food that his wife makes. He just wants to eat something very simple. Like, he keeps talking about wanting just bologna and cheese instead of all these highfalutin cuisine dishes that his wife whips up. He just wants simplicity. He's sick of his wife, all that. So things end up coming to a head. He ends up killing her. He cooks her in the microwave, decides he likes eating people, so there's a cannibalism aspect to it for sure. But the acting in this is horrid. Not a single person in this film knows how to act. It's really, really terrible. The lines, like, it's written horribly. A lot of the story choices don't make any sense. There's a lot of like left field stuff that just pops out of nowhere, like really weird, quirky characters for no reason, or things that happen for no reason. All the dialogue seems so chopped up because it just seemed like someone who just wanted to throw down certain lines of dialogue, and they couldn't figure out how to make it actually flow and feel realistic, or like it actually fits within the context of a story. So it's really just becomes a ton of one-liners. It's basically someone who just wanted to make jokes the entire time for the most part. And excuse me, I found myself laughing at those jokes, not because they were actually funny, but because of how like cringy bad they were. So it is a really good time. If you have not seen Microwave Massacre and you are into So Bad It's Good films, like, this is one of the films you've been looking for your entire life, to be honest. Like, it nails So Bad It's Good to a T. A lot of the times when I look, when I end up watching films that I think will be so bad it's good, I'll come away and be like, yeah, definitely So Bad It's Good. This one, I came away and I was like, oh, this is like prime cheese. This is what every person who likes these types of films needs to see. And that's why Microwave Massacre is my pick for 1979's best So Bad It's Good. Now for my most WTF film. I have a feeling this will be the most WTF for Uncle Pete. Or if it's not, it's on his list for sure. And that is Tourist Trap. Yes, I believe I was originally introduced to it by Joe Bob Briggs with The Last Drive-In some years ago. It is very weird. It is very WTF. The whole story in general, like, it rips off Texas Chainsaw Massacre a little bit about like these teens who go out to this kind of southern, remote area, and then they run afoul of this guy who's going around killing people, not using a chainsaw, but he has like these psychic powers, like psychokinetic powers or telekinetic powers. He can like move things, and like, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to like spoil where it ends up going, but there were some really weird character choices within this and acting. I mean, Chuck Connors does a phenomenal job with what acting he does in the film, but they're just weird choices from the script, basically, for this character to be. And there's like mannequins involved, lots of mannequins, way too many mannequins involved in this. And it's just like moment to moment, you are constantly just like, WTF. And the whole like telekinesis thing comes into play like immediately. And it's just like WTF after WTF after WTF with this film. It's very satisfying though. It's a lot of fun, but it's definitely a WTF film through and through. And that's why Tourist Trap is my most WTF film for 1979. Now going to the best gore, which, look, if you know what films are from 1979 that are horror, you gotta pick this one, basically. That's Lucio Fulci's Zombie. And yes, this is see if I can get you to see it. The lenticular cover. Very fun. The worms coming out. And that's one of the things. Yes, worms coming out of the zombies. That's some good gore right there, even though it's not like gore. It's disgusting. The design of the zombies in this, so good. There's a moment where one of the zombies is attacking a guy on the boat, and he like rips a part of the zombie's rotting flesh off. There's copious amounts of blood in this film, and it's that, like red paint looking blood from Italian films of the time, which I have been endeared to me very, very much. But love the copious amounts of blood. They have a lot of like guts, intestines, all that stuff when they're showing zombies eat people. Like I said, the zombies themselves, their design is very like gory and disgusting. Let's also talk about the fact that they had shark gore in this film, where a zombie, I know everyone knows this, a zombie fights a shark underwater, and it draws blood, but then the zombie's arm ends up in the mouth of the shark too, so the mouth of the shark is going up and down. It like doesn't rip off its arm, should have, but it bites his arm, and there's like for some reason, green blood flying out of its mouth underwater. Crazy scene, really inventive, interesting gore in that instance. And then let's talk about the most intense disturbing moment and probably hard to handle for squeamish people, the eyeball scene. The one where there's literally a big splinter of wood that the camera is going at head on, and then juxtaposing it with the head of a woman being pulled towards it by a zombie hand. They keep going back and forth. How long it takes really ratchets up the tension, makes you like, oh my gosh, are they going to do this? Are you going to do this? And they do. They literally show the splinter of wood going into her eyeball from the side and into her head, and then they show a shot from the front of the piece of it broken off sticking out of her eye. It is awesome. That is one of the best gore gags I've ever seen in a film, period. I love it. And obviously, Lucio Fulci's Zombie is my pick for best gore for 79. Now we're going to the most unique film, and that is David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg has a lot of unique stuff, obviously. His film The Brood is my pick for 1979's most unique, because it's about killer kids, kind of, who look really weird, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, why are these kids murdering? And then come to find out, they're being born out of these weird, disgusting looking sacs that are coming out of a woman. And it's basically like born out of her anger. Instead of her like naturally giving birth, she gets these like nodes, these like nodules that present on her body because of her anger. And then that bursts these kids who go out and basically kill, motivated by her anger. It is extremely unique. It is gross, as most David Cronenberg is, because it's really good body horror. And it's a good, interesting film, too. So if you have not seen The Brood, definitely see The Brood. Very, very interesting. And it is obvious why it is my pick for the best, or the most unique film of 1979. Now I'm going to the most overrated. Now, this is a film I've heard from so many people. Oh, I love it. Oh, it's so good. And it's mainstream. It's become kind of like, mainstream people know about this film. And it probably has to do with the events that inspired the making of the film. So this film is The Amityville Horror. Pretty well done film. I do like it enough, but it's vastly overhyped. It's insanely overrated. And I think a lot of it comes down to the hype around it when it was coming out because of the murders that had happened at a house that this film was then based off of. So and there's also like this storied kind of like cursed past about it, like weird things happening when they were making the film and all that type of stuff. So those types of things kind of get baked into society, and then it like ratchets up the hype even more. So it is a good enough film. I actually have a review for it on my channel, but it's not great. It's an okay film, a little bit more than okay film in my opinion. It had a huge franchise that that was spawned from it, and yeah, so like I understand that people like it, but how popular it is pretty crazy because people talk about it all the time. People really do. Like if you're online, people are talking about the Amityville Horror. I think it just got like a 4K release from like Vinegar Syndrome, which I was very surprised because they usually don't get bigger titles like that. So that's interesting. So if you like the film, you can get a 4K, I believe, from Vinegar Syndrome. So my pick for most overrated, The Amityville Horror. Now for the final category, the most underrated. If you've looked at the list of films for 79 that are horror, and you know my fandom, and you're like, there's one film missing from your list, that's because it's the most underrated. Phantasm, by far. I mean, I would just say that the entire Phantasm franchise is underrated, but in this particular instance, since we're going with 1 year, the original Phantasm that came out in 1979. Yeah, this is the original Blu-ray box set that was put out, that was done by Bad Robot, actually. That's J.J. Abrams' company, because he's a huge fan of Phantasm, and was like, oh my gosh, like, we need a Blu-ray of the Phantasm films because they're so amazing, and there wasn't one out there. So he took up the project of doing that, and this was the first box set that was released. I jumped at it because it's amazing. So the premise of Phantasm is wacky. So it could be in the most unique category. It could also be considered most amazing, but, obviously I think from a technical standpoint, Alien is way better done. But, although I love Don Coscarelli, but the concept of this alien being who comes to a town, kills people, poses as a funeral director, takes their bodies, shrinks them, sends them to another dimension, basically, through this like portal, shrinks their bodies down, or I think he has to shrink them down first, then send them through the portal because it has to do with like the gravity or something. They'd be crushed if they weren't like compacted down. So they're down to like little person size. It's crazy. And then you have to try and figure out like what is he even doing here? So the characters are really interesting and cool. I especially love Reggie Bannister. Everyone likes the Ice Cream Man, Reggie Bannister. Um, it's basically just about these three people who end up finding out about what's going on with the tall man, Angus Scrimm's character, R.I.P. Angus Scrimm. I wish I would have been able to meet him before he passed, but and they are fighting to try and save their town in essence, and it goes from there because it obviously spawned a franchise. I think the storyline all the way through is good. I even enjoy Ravager. It's got like an emotional ending to it for me. I got emotional when I watched it for sure, but eventually I will be reviewing this franchise. I haven't, but I love it so much. It is my favorite horror franchise, period. I love it so much that I've just been afraid to watch and review it because I'm afraid I won't do it justice. I know that sounds kind of dumb, but like we all have our kind of hangups. But eventually it'll happen, and I'm excited for when it does. But obviously, Phantasm, my most underrated film. Why are people not talking about it? Like there isn't nearly enough merch, although I'm seeing a little bit more nowadays. There isn't nearly enough merch for Phantasm out there. People don't really talk about Phantasm that much. And it is a franchise. It's a horror franchise that the films primarily came out in the 90s or 80s, I believe. Let's see if there's no, 90s actually. Well, it was 78 or sorry, 79 according to Letterboxd. 79, 88, 93, 98, 2016. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, I love it. People need to talk about it more. People need to see it. If you haven't seen it, like, come on, Phantasm. Anyway, I'm going to cut this off. Once again, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Uncle Pete's channel, hit the notification bell buttons, all that. Watch his video, do the voting on the community tab, all that jazz. Thank you, everyone, for watching these videos. Love the comments that have been coming. And once again, remember, we're not putting the wrap-up after the week after this. It's going to be October 5th. So look for that then. But thanks for taking your time to watch this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.